Hello, today we're going to be talking all about what your hormones mean and what your symptoms mean specifically. Hi, my name is Andrea Jones. I am a registered nurse and functional hormone practitioner. And in today's training, I'm going to be walking you through what your hormone symptoms actually mean so you can quit the guesswork and finally get to what is going to help you feel your best, have painless periods, and get rid of your mood swings. So follow, and subscribe for more. You're tired of guessing what your symptoms actually mean, right? I know that I'm tired of it. I don't like having to do guesswork. I like knowing what's going on in my body and what my body's trying to tell me. We're going to be talking about why what your doctor doesn't know could be keeping you stuck, why what you've tried hasn't worked, and then the 3 steps to eliminating your symptoms for good. So we're going to be talking about all of that stuff tonight. So typically when I'm working with somebody, now I've been working with women in the online space since 2018, really. I left my hospital nursing job and really just went all in helping women to balance their hormones from a holistic perspective. And so in that period of time, which is about 5 years of data, our typical client results, I wish I could share the screen with you, those of you that are on Instagram and Facebook. But typically what we see in there is within 2 to 3 weeks, we see improved mood and energy. And this is marked improvement, meaning like 25% symptom reduction, right? Which is pretty awesome. Within about 6 to 8 weeks, we see reduced bleeding during their menstrual cycle, elimination of cramping, reduction in PMS symptoms, reduced or eliminated migraines. Let's see here, and total elimination of symptoms between weeks 9 and week 12. So what took me 4 years to really balance my hormones, my clients are seeing within 3 months. So how many of you, I'm just really curious, those of you on Instagram and on Facebook and in the Zoom chat, like that would be life-changing for you to be symptom-free within 3 months. I know that it would have been for me. I'll be sharing a little bit more about my specific journey, kind of woven throughout this process. I don't want to take a ton of time on my personal story with that. But a little bit about me. I am a registered nurse. I have got just over 20 years of clinical experience, including all of my unpaid years during clinical rotations, et cetera. I've worked in a lot of different nursing environments before moving into the online space in 2018. I am the host of the Abundant Wellness podcast, which if you are not a subscriber, I would highly encourage you to go subscribe to that. I'm the author of the book Wrapped in Kindness, and a functional hormone practitioner. So I really, really, really love helping women to balance their hormones. I love working with children and helping them to uncover some root causes of why they might be stuck with behavioral issues, and really just helping them to get to the bottom of why they're not feeling well. For those of you, again, if you're on Instagram and you want the slides, make sure to comment the slides and I will get the recording over to you so you can see them. But here's just a screenshot of different places that I have been featured in the past as a contributor or, hey, Susan, thank you for joining. We are talking all about hormone resilience tonight. So these are all people that I would recommend that you follow, whether that be like a published article or a podcast. I would encourage you to give them a follow, and just be encouraged by their content. So, all right, let's dive in. What do your painful periods, mood swings, irritability, fatigue, and low libido mean anyway? So, as I was doing a lot of this research and development, which my friends joke that research would have been my second career if I had not gone into nursing, because I love digging for data. I love putting puzzle pieces together, and research and development is kind of like that. So in all of the research and development for working with women and all of the advanced training, I could really boil down the majority of our symptoms to 3 main categories, okay? So how many of you feel like trying to understand hormones is like trying to learn Chinese? Like it feels like trying to learn a different language. It's confusing, it's overwhelming. just when you think you understand one thing, the other stuff doesn't make sense, right? Or just when you have one thing figured out, then everything else feels confusing. Like that's not a great place to be. It doesn't feel good to be in that space. But really, like at the bottom of the majority of every woman that I've ever worked with, their cycles and their menstrual issues, this can be boiled down to three main problems, okay? The first is poor liver congestion. So if you think about your liver being like a sponge, its job is to mop up toxins, metabolize hormones, synthesize vitamins, cleanse the blood. It does a lot of things for us, okay? Secondly, the gut-brain connection. So if your gut is not communicating with your brain properly, which we'll be diving more into each of these specifics here very shortly, it's not going to be able to tell your brain to make the right hormones at the right time of the month, okay? Which then leads to fatigue, mood swings, and irritability, which is a problem. So I'm curious, how many of you on here, when I talk about the gut-brain connection, you know what I mean? Just give me a thumbs up in the comments if you know what I mean when I say that. If you don't know what I mean, that's totally okay. I'm going to dive right into it and give you a really good overview of what that means and what that looks like. Okay. And the third main thing that we see, this would be like the bottom of the iceberg, okay, is inadequate nourishment to support your hormone health. So we may have access to all of the foods that we could ever possibly want, right? We have access to all of it. However, our food is the most nutrient, it is the most void of nutrients it has ever been in the history of our planet, okay? And that's primarily because of how we've treated the land, how our animals are treated. They are not healthy, so they're not digesting nutrients properly, which means that we're not getting nutrients from our meat and our soil. So we are historically the most nutrient deficient we've ever been, okay? And so, so we need to look at like what hormones specifically we need to nourish in order to support our hormone health, okay? We're going to talk about that more here too. So a lot of women think that the root cause of their problems is low progesterone, low testosterone, high cortisol, or high estrogen. And they may think this, you may think this too, because maybe you've had a blood test done and it's actually come back with one of those things being elevated. However, if you're on the other end of that spectrum and you've had your labs drawn and they've said like everything's normal, everything's fine, that can feel really frustrating because it's not actually explaining the root cause of your symptoms. And we'll dive into that a little bit more too. But the root causes of all of the symptoms that I mentioned are gut dysbiosis, so bacterial imbalances in the gut that are leading to big problems. Inadequate liver detoxification, so meaning that your liver is not detoxifying toxins and metals and estrogens. The job of your liver is to break down some of those estrogens and get them out of the body. Again, that disconnect between the gut and the brain. High stress, meaning we have a poor stress resilience, poor sleep, and inadequate nutrition that's not supporting the liver and the gut and the brain to function properly. Is this making sense to everybody so far? You can just give me a thumbs up if so. I love this graphic. Honestly, I wish that I had the sourcing to give credit to this because I did not make this graphic. But here's just a graphic of some of the things that your liver does, okay? And for those of us that grew up, you know, in the early 90s, early 2000s, we have experienced multiple hits to our livers primarily. Even if you were never using drugs, if you ever used pharmaceutical medication, if you ever took ibuprofen, if you ever used Tylenol, if you were on anything like Accutane or, you know, medications that are really, really hard on your liver, your body is going to take a hit from that. So here's just a kind of a graphic of some of the things that your liver does, okay? So some symptoms of liver congestion, and I just want you to put in the comments how many of these symptoms you experience, okay? So irritability, anger, and rage before your cycle, mood swings, if you've ever been diagnosed with estrogen dominance via blood testing or urine testing, heavy periods, painful periods, low vitamin D, seasonal depression, difficulty falling or staying asleep. This is often a symptom that gets really missed by women as they're working on balancing their hormones, okay? Is their sleep patterns. We do really need to pay attention to that because that can point us to some really significant issues with our hormones. So what causes liver congestion? I know that I mentioned a few of them, but I kind of want to dive in a little bit deeper here. Toxin overload with our food, water, and environment. We're getting toxins pretty much from everywhere, and our body's trying to work them out as fast as it can. Gallbladder issues, or if you've ever had your gallbladder removed, if you've had gallstones, those, if you think about, I'll kind of go back to this picture here. The gallbladder and the liver, they're buddies. So this little kind of nub that you see here, that is the gallbladder. So if that's not working properly, it does a lot of things to the liver that is really not helpful for us, right? And it also explains why if you ever took birth control or hormone replacement therapy, that doesn't solve the root cause of the problem. It just doesn't, because the root cause is not the high estrogen. The root cause is not low progesterone. It's all of these upstream problems. All right, so prolonged periods of stress. The liver is particularly very, very sensitive to stress, okay? So when we are under extreme stress for prolonged periods of time, that typically will cause like just a sluggish liver. And then obviously, then we're gonna start having some exacerbated symptoms of that. So how many of you have ever had like a period of extreme stress and then you noticed that your periods were just wacky, like they just were not they were not functioning the way that they should be. You knew that like maybe you had more cramps or more bloating or more anxiety or more sleep issues. That is because stress impacts the entire nervous system, okay? And it's going to impact the liver as well. And of course, birth control and pharmaceutical medications all have an impact on the liver. So remember that second root cause that we were talking about is the gut-brain connection, okay? So this is from the Lancet, I believe. I believe this one's from the Lancet, although I don't see it cited on here, but hold on just one second. Oops. Hold on, ladies, one moment. I've got to get that screen to work. Sorry about that. Right. All right, so we have this beautiful gut-brain axis, okay? And this is the nervous system that's communicating between the gut and the brain. And when it's doing that, it's moving in both directions all of the time. So this is what we mean when we talk about how the gut-brain connection, how the nervous system and the microbiome interact with each other. And I think this graphic is so cool because it actually shows us, let's see here. When somebody has the appropriate beneficial bacteria in their microbiome, it has a direct impact on your neurons or your neurotransmitters that produce happy mood chemicals, right? So when our gut is out of balance, what it actually releases is, hey, Marcia, thank you for joining. So happy you're here. We are talking about hormones and hormone resilience tonight. So what happens is the harmful bacteria actually release something called endotoxins, and those endotoxins are actually very, very harmful to the production of our neurotransmitters. Now, your gut makes about 70 to 80% of your serotonin and dopamine. Some studies have even shown 90%, which is wild to me that we can make that much in our gut, okay? So the gut-brain connection is very, very important when we're talking about regulating the nervous system and healing the microbiome for hormone regulation, okay? So let's break this down. I love simple, and so this is why I kind of have broken it down into three main categories. Of course, there's going to be some overlap in these symptoms because the body is complex and some of these symptoms they do overlap into other categories. And I do have a comprehensive hormone assessment. If you're wanting that, just comment assessment below and I will make sure to get that over to you, okay? But some symptoms of a poor gut-brain connection, okay? So history of anxiety or depression. Let's see here. Welcome, Mama Bear. Happy that you're here. History of anxiety or depression. If you've ever had acne, bloating, food allergies, constipation, diarrhea, loose stools before your period, insomnia, postpartum depression or postpartum anxiety, or if you've ever been diagnosed with low progesterone, meaning if you've ever had a lab test or a urine test that showed, hey, my progesterone's really low, that is an indicator of a poor gut-brain connection, meaning there is a problem with the gut-brain axis, okay? So I would love to know in the comments how many of these symptoms you currently have. Most women, when I'm working with them, usually come in with between 5 to 7 symptoms in this category, okay? And we're tracking all of them when we work together because we want to see all of them go down to 0, okay? Okay, so I see on there 7, 5, yeah, that's pretty typical, yeah. Yeah, and so many women don't realize that these are all connected to each other. So a lot of times when I talk to somebody and they say, oh, my periods are normal, I only bleed for 5 days and they come regularly. But then when we start digging into their symptoms, they're having all of these symptoms that they didn't actually realize were connected to the bigger problem, okay? So let's talk about what causes that gut-brain disconnection. So we've got food allergies, prolonged periods of stress, like we talked about, that just wreaks a lot of havoc on the nervous system. Pregnancy slows down motility to the gut. And if we're not actively working on supporting our digestion through pregnancy, it will cause a lot of problems with our motility in the long term and the microbial balance, okay? Brain injuries like whiplash, a traumatic brain injury, concussion, all of those can cause issues with the gut-brain connection. Hey, Monica, thank you for joining. Talking all about hormones tonight. Infections like SIBO, Lyme, or Epstein-Barr virus, food and environmental triggers that impair the lining of the gut. We know specifically what I'm talking about here is glyphosate. Glyphosate is a pesticide that is sprayed on GMO foods that will destroy the lining of the gut. It's terrible for you. So if at the bare minimum, all you can buy is non-GMO, get it. Get it where you can, and especially on your fruits and vegetables, your produce items, because they harbor a lot of those toxins, which is just not great for us. Okay, so Hashimoto's, other autoimmune conditions, and of course, antibiotic usage. All of those can cause a major disconnection in the gut-brain and the gut-brain axis, which then makes it hard to have a healthy, happy mood right before your cycle. So this is where a lot of women will say, I've been on progesterone for my mood before my cycle, and it helps maybe like 10%. Like I see a 10% improvement in my symptoms. That is because if we are not addressing the gut-brain connection, we're not going to see improvement in those symptoms. Is that making sense to everybody so far? I'm curious, how many of you have been on antibiotics and noticed that your mood was a problem?